take your hands off my luggage." Isadora Pemberton Cross, 36-year-old wife of Rafferty Cross, said it once, just once. Beatrice Cross, 63-year-old mother of Rafferty and the kind of woman who treated every room like a stage she had personally built, did not stop. She reached into the open garment bag, pulled out a cream silk dress, and threw it over the suite balcony railing, with the casual force of someone discarding something that had never mattered. The dress opened in the warm Charleston air before dropping toward the lower terrace. Somewhere below, a gardener looked up. Oswald Cross, 66-year-old father of Rafferty and honorary chairman of Hearthstone Capital, lifted the garment bag itself and set it on the railing's edge. "The faster you leave, the cleaner this becomes," he said. Rafferty Cross, 41-year-old husband of Isadora and VP of Strategic Development at Hearthstone Capital, stood near the glass door of the suite. Beside him stood Linnea Farrow, 34, Hearthstone's Director of Acquisitions, who was not carrying a work folder or wearing a badge. She was wearing a pale linen dress, her hair loose, her hand resting near Rafferty's arm. She looked like a woman who had already measured the space and decided it fit her. Isadora looked at her husband. "You invited me here to talk." "I invited you here because I wanted to handle this privately," Rafferty said. "Before the summit." "You invited 7 people and a camera." Isadora's eyes moved to Deanna Moss, Hearthstone's PR associate, who stood near the doorway with her phone tilted at an angle that pretended to be disinterested. "That is not private." Rafferty rubbed the back of his neck. He had the expression she had come to recognize over the past year, the one where he looked past her shoulder instead of at her face, as though the conversation had already been decided somewhere she had not been invited. Beatrice threw another dress. This one struck the railing, slid, and caught on the iron edge before falling. "You came into this family with a last name and a quiet smile," Beatrice said. "That was the entirety of your contribution. My son has built something real here. Hearthstone Summit is in 2 days, and he does not need a distraction wearing his last name." Isadora touched her wrist where the garment bag's zipper had caught the skin. It was a small mark. She did not show it on her face. Halford Renner, 57, Oswald's personal attorney, and a man who had been in this family's service long enough to stop pretending he had opinions of his own, placed a leather folder on the suite's dining table and opened it. "These are the divorce petition and the proposed settlement," he said. "Mr. Cross has signed both. The terms protect separately held and premarital assets on both sides." Isadora looked at the papers on the table. Then she looked at her husband. "You called this weekend a reconciliation." "I called it a conversation." Rafferty's voice thinned. "You turned it into something you needed to survive." He picked up the pen Halford had set beside the folder. Linnea said nothing. She did not need to. The way she stood beside Rafferty, close enough that he would feel her presence, far enough to maintain the appearance of professional distance, said everything her silence was meant to convey. Rafferty signed the petition, then the settlement. The scratch of the pen across both documents was quiet against the sound of the ocean below. Isadora did not shout. She did not cry in front of them. She looked at the balcony railing where her dresses had gone over the edge, and she thought about the morning 18 months ago, when she had authorized a wire transfer that kept those same people from losing everything they had ever built. She picked up her travel bag, the one Beatrice had not gotten to yet, and walked toward the suite door. "Do not expect a generous settlement," Beatrice called after her. "Halford has been thorough." Isadora paused near the threshold. She studied the room one last time. The marble floors, the custom millwork, the floor-to-ceiling windows that framed the harbor. The Aldenmere had been Hearthstone Capital's flagship property since the day it opened. Oswald had given speeches claiming he had built it from nothing. He had not, but he did not know that yet. "I will have my attorney respond," Isadora said and left. Amos Thane, 55, Isadora's personal attorney and the only person outside her family's trust council who knew her full financial situation, was waiting in the private parking structure beside a black sedan. He saw her face before she spoke. He saw the mark on her wrist. Isadora told him what had happened. She was precise. She did not editorialize. She described Beatrice throwing the dresses, Oswald holding the bag over the railing, Rafferty's signature, Linnea's presence, Deanna's phone tilted at that careful angle. When she finished, Amos was quiet for several seconds. "The settlement Halford drafted protects the Harwick Trust," he finally said. "He built it to protect Hearthstone from you. He did not realize he built it to protect you from Hearthstone." Isadora looked out the sedan window as they pulled away from the Aldenmere's service entrance. One of the upper balconies was visible above the palm trees. A gardener was folding a pale cream dress he had found on the terrace below. Begin the evidence preservation notices, she said. The Aldenmere's security footage from this afternoon, the suite reservation records, the communications from Diana's work accounts. Done before midnight, Amos said. And I want every Hearthstone transaction connected to the Aldenmere's last renovation. He looked at her. You already know what they'll find. I need the committee to find it properly, without my fingerprints on the order. Her father, Wendell Harwick, had taught her that. He had been a man who controlled one of the largest private hospitality trusts in the American Southeast and who had never appeared in a Forbes profile, a charity gala photograph, or a ribbon-cutting ceremony. He had built hotels, acquired commercial land across 12 states, and allowed other people to put their names on the buildings. When he died, everything went into the Harwick Private Trust. Isadora was its sole beneficiary. She was also, through the trust's holding structure, the controlling owner of Hearthstone Capital, the company Oswald Cross had founded, expanded with Harwick money, and spent 30 years calling his own creation. Isadora had preserved Oswald's honorary chairmanship because Wendell had once told her that transitions, handled badly, hurt people who had nothing to do with the people in charge. The maintenance crews, the front desk workers, the kitchen staff who arrived at 5 in the morning because guests needed breakfast at 6. She had protected Oswald's title to protect them. That patience was finished now. She had not told Rafferty who she was before their marriage, not because she was testing him. She had never arranged a test. She had simply grown up watching her father's money transform people. And she had wanted one relationship in her life where she could be certain the person beside her had chosen her without that knowledge. She had told him, before they married, that her father had left her a private trust with holdings in hospitality and real estate. Rafferty had asked no follow-up questions. He had assumed the trust was small because Isadora drove a practical car, wore simple clothes to Hearthstone events, and never corrected anyone who spoke to her like she was a middle manager's wife at a corporate dinner. The night Hearthstone nearly failed, Rafferty had come home at 11 o'clock and sat on the kitchen floor with his back against the island. He said the company could not cover the land lease on the Westport acquisition, that the financing had fallen through, and that his father's creditors were preparing to accelerate a debt package that would force an emergency sale of 2 properties. Isadora had made him tea. She had sat beside him on the floor. She had stayed until he fell asleep. Then she had called Amos. By 4 in the morning, the Harwick Trust had begun the process of acquiring a controlling interest in Hearthstone Capital at a price that protected the company's existing employees and stabilized the debt. Oswald's honorary chairmanship was preserved as a condition of the rescue. Rafferty was promoted to VP the following quarter, which he believed was a result of his own performance review. He had never known the rescue had come from the woman he kissed goodbye each morning. That was the part that had kept her in the marriage long past the point where she should have left. Not the money, not the power, but the memory of the man who had once been kind for no reason at all. She had met Rafferty at a historic preservation gala 7 years ago. A collector had knocked over a display case near the exit and simply walked away, leaving a volunteer docent in her 60s trying to gather broken ceramic pieces off a marble floor while guests stepped around her. Rafferty had been the only person in a $500 suit who stopped. He had knelt beside the woman, helped her collect the pieces, and spent 10 minutes asking her about the history of the collection she was trying to protect. He had not known Isadora was watching. He had not known she was Wendell Harwick's daughter. He had been kind because the moment asked for it. That man still lived somewhere inside him. She had spent 2 years of a breaking marriage waiting for him to come back. He had signed divorce papers on a hotel balcony while his mistress watched. She was done waiting. The night before Hearthstone's annual leadership summit, Amos brought her the first audit results. The numbers were precise, and they were damning. Hearthstone Capital money had paid for the private spa wing added to the Aldenmere's owner's penthouse 18 months ago. The renovation had been recorded as an executive hospitality upgrade, but the invoices listed a steam room, a custom closet system, and imported travertine flooring that had been installed in Bertrice and Oswald's private residence, not in the hotel. Rafferty had approved the expense transfer. He had categorized it as property enhancement to avoid a line-item review. Linear had used Hearthstone's marketing budget to fund 4 private trips she and Rafferty had taken together, recorded in the corporate jet manifests as site assessments for potential acquisitions. 2 of the bookings listed 1 suite, 2 names. In a message chain between Rafferty and Oswald sent 3 weeks before the summit, Rafferty had written, "After Aldenmere, the board will see me as the obvious choice. Once Halford handles the personal situation and Linnea is formalized, the optics are clean. The personal situation had been Isadora. She read the message twice. Then she set the tablet on the coffee table and looked at the window. She thought about the sapphire bracelet. 3 months earlier, Rafferty had asked her to help select a retirement gift for a departing board member, a woman named Frances who had served Hearthstone for 28 years. Isadora had spent an hour with a jeweler choosing something appropriate. A simple bracelet, white gold setting. Not too heavy, she had told Rafferty. Frances had always preferred understated things. She had seen the bracelet at the summit preview dinner on Linnea's wrist. Under the dinner lights, the white gold had caught the candle flame and thrown a thin arc across the tablecloth. Isadora had looked away that night. She had told herself there was still an explanation she had not heard. The audit had confirmed the purchase on Rafferty's personal card, the delivery address, the card inside the box, 2 words, for after. The following morning, Isadora met Remy Ashland, 53, Hearthstone's lead independent director and the board member who had overseen the rescue agreement 18 months ago, at a private office 12 blocks from the Aldenmere. She formally disclosed her divorce. She disclosed the trust. She handed the audit summary to Remy and the outside counsel present. She also disclosed that she would not participate in any board vote concerning Rafferty's employment. Remy read the summary in silence. When he finished, he placed it on the table. The committee will need 48 hours. The summit is in 48 hours, Isadora said. I know. Make sure the employees are protected before anything becomes public. Payroll, contracts, benefits, nothing touches the staff. He nodded. And Oswald's chairmanship. Isadora looked out the window. A delivery truck was backing into a hotel service entrance across the street. A man in a Hearthstone uniform was checking a clipboard, talking into a radio, moving quickly because there were guests to take care of and work to do. The rescue agreement expires the morning of the summit, she said. Enforce it the way the document requires. The summit was held in the Aldenmere's Grand Ballroom. Hearthstone's investors, partners, and senior leadership gathered beneath restored plasterwork ceilings and a chandelier salvaged from a demolished Savannah theater. Isadora watched the morning session from a second-floor gallery. Oswald gave an opening address about legacy and leadership. Rafferty presented a development strategy for new coastal acquisitions. Linnea sat 3 seats from him at the main table, wearing the sapphire bracelet. Rafferty's presentation was good. Portions of it had come directly from a market analysis. Isadora had quietly commissioned and forwarded to him 6 months ago through a Hearthstone Foundation channel. He had presented it as his own research. She had known at the time. She had let it go because she still believed in what they were building together. She did not let it go now. At 11 o'clock, Remy called a brief recess and convened the independent committee. 20 minutes later, Amos appeared beside her in the gallery. The committee has voted, he said. Oswald's protected chairmanship expires at noon. Rafferty's position is suspended pending final review. Linnea has been placed on administrative leave. Diana's communications archive has been preserved. And the accounts? All discretionary accounts connected to the penthouse renovation and the personal travel have been frozen. Outside on the Aldenmere's private motor court, Rafferty's keycard stopped working at 11:52. He was attempting to board the company helicopter for the investor aerial tour of Hearthstone's coastal portfolio. The pilot, Grace Vanson, who had flown for Hearthstone for 11 years, had a revised passenger manifest. Rafferty's name was not on it. He tried the card again. Red light. Oswald came through the lobby entrance demanding to speak to someone with authority. The pilot deferred to the board's written instructions. Linnea tried the executive access entrance on the building's east side. Declined. Diana's company phone had been remotely locked at 10 o'clock. She was still trying to reach IT when the committee's notice reached her personal email. Then the hotel's main entrance doors opened. Isadora walked out of the Aldenmere, wearing the dark dress she had packed in the bag. Bertrice had not reached. Amos walked on her right. Remy followed with 2 independent directors. Behind them, members of the committee's investigation team fanned out toward the motor court. She did not walk quickly. She did not need to. Rafferty saw her before she saw him. She knew this because when she finally looked toward the motor court, his face had already changed. The practiced confidence he wore to investor presentations was gone, replaced by something that was not quite confusion and not quite recognition, but lived in the uncomfortable space between them. Linnea stepped forward. Why is she here? Remy spoke before anyone else could. I'd like to introduce Isadora Pemberton Cross, sole beneficiary of the Harwick Private Trust and controlling owner of Hearthstone Capital through its parent holding company. The motor court was quiet enough that the harbour wind was audible. Oswald laughed. It was the kind of laugh meant to rearrange a room's power without engaging with what had been said. Isadora is my daughter-in-law. She is also the reason your company is still operating, Remy said. He read without pausing the details of the rescue agreement, the $22 million in trust capital that had covered Hearthstone's failed acquisition debt, the lease protections, the employee salary guarantees, the pension stabilization, the condition included at Isadora's request that Oswald retain his honorary chairmanship during a protected 18-month transition. That transition had ended at noon. Rafferty stared at her. You knew this when we met? No, I knew it when we married. I told you my father left me a trust with Hospitality Holdings. You assumed the size. You let me work there for 7 years. I let you build a career in a company that was still standing because I chose to save it. Her voice did not rise. I made that choice the night you sat on the kitchen floor and told me you were afraid of losing everything. I was there. You were the reason I called Amos before sunrise. Something crossed Rafferty's face, not shame exactly, but its predecessor, the moment before a person fully understands the weight of what they have discarded. Then Bertree spoke. This is a performance. She arranged all of this because Rafferty tried to leave her with dignity. Isadora looked at her mother-in-law. She thought about the cream dress disappearing over the balcony railing 2 days ago. She thought about the zipper mark on her wrist. You told me I came into this family with nothing, Isadora said. You were standing in my hotel when you said it. The outside counsel stepped forward with individual notices. Oswald's addressed the chairmanship expiration and the committee's preliminary findings on renovation expenses and unauthorized company guarantee use. Rafferty's detailed his suspension and the full audit evidence, the travel records, the expense approvals, the email chain with his father about handling the personal situation. Linnea's terminated her employment based on documented falsification of business travel records and misappropriation of the marketing budget. Diana's notice referenced the communications archive already in investigators' possession, including her attempt to photograph the suite confrontation, captured in full by the Aldenmere's exterior security cameras, which recorded to a server Hearthstone management had no administrative rights over. Halford had sent Isadora a settlement offer the previous week. The amount he had proposed was less than what she had authorized in a single morning to keep his client's company alive. She had returned it through Amos with every confidentiality clause declined. She would not be purchased into silence. The helicopter departed for the investor tour on schedule. The family's luggage remained in the staging area beside the motor court. No one loaded it. No one threw it. The workers simply followed the instructions their actual employer had provided, which was the entire difference. That evening, Isadora sat in a private meeting with the committee and Hearthstone's legal team, completing the transition disclosures the trust required. By 8 o'clock, a message had gone to all company employees confirming that operations were stable, that the investigation concerned individual conduct, and that no position would be eliminated as a result of leadership changes. A maintenance supervisor who had worked at one of Hearthstone's managed properties for 22 years sent a message to the all-staff channel. It said simply, "Whoever made sure we kept our pensions, thank you." He did not know who read it. He did not need to. That night, Isadora returned to the townhouse alone. The rooms were quiet. There were no work bags near the door that belonged to someone else, no voice on a call in another room she was not supposed to hear. She sat by the window for a long time with the lights off. She did not feel triumphant. Triumph is a clean emotion, and what she felt was not clean. It was layered. Relief, underneath grief, underneath the specific ache of understanding that she had spent years giving her best care to someone who had been routing it toward his own ambition and calling it a marriage. She took the sapphire bracelet receipt from her jacket pocket. Amos had included it in the file. She had carried it for 2 days without looking directly at it. She looked at it now, the delivery address, the handwritten card, for After. She thought about what After had meant to Rafferty. After she was gone, after the divorce, after the summit had handed him what he had convinced himself he had earned. He had spent months building a future inside a company he did not own, planning to share it with a woman whose name he had put on documents he was hiding. The receipt went into the box Amos would collect in the morning. She went to the bookshelf and took down the photograph her father had kept in every office he had ever used. It showed a much younger Wendell Harwick standing inside a half-finished hotel ballroom, wearing a hard hat, holding a blueprint upside down and laughing at himself. He had told her once that the best thing about building something real was that it existed whether or not anyone knew you had built it. The guests still sleep, he used to say. The staff still get paid. That is what it means to make something that matters. The divorce was finalized 4 months later under the separate property terms Halford had drafted to protect Hearthstone from her. The irony was precise enough that Amos mentioned it once, with a brief smile, then moved on. Hearthstone named a new chief operating officer from within its existing management team, a woman named Ava Selkirk, who had run property operations for 8 years and who brought 3 of her direct reports into expanded leadership roles on the same day. Isadora remained the controlling owner. She remained quiet about it in the ways her father had taught her mattered. She joined the Aldenmere's kitchen one morning at 6, without announcement, and thanked the breakfast crew by name. She expanded the employee ownership program. She funded apprenticeships in hospitality management for young people who could not otherwise afford the training. She made sure the pension line in every Hearthstone property budget was the last place the committee was ever allowed to touch. Rafferty sent her a letter 6 weeks after the court finalized everything. He did not ask for anything. He did not blame his parents or Linnea or the pressure of the summit. He wrote that he had spent a long time thinking about the night she sat beside him on the kitchen floor, and that he now understood the difference between someone who takes from you and someone who builds beside you, and that he had not recognized the difference until he had lost access to both. She read the letter twice. She placed it in the drawer where she kept her father's photograph. She did not answer, but she did not throw it away. Several months after the tarmac, she boarded a regular Hearthstone guest shuttle from the Charleston terminal. A couple 2 rows ahead of her had a toddler who kept dropping a stuffed rabbit near Isadora's feet. She returned it 3 times. The mother apologized. Isadora said there was nothing to apologize for and meant it. She did not take the company helicopter. She did not take the reserve transport Oswald had always used. She sat with a coffee cup and a briefing document, and when the property came into view across the water, she thought about the maintenance supervisor who had sent that message to the staff channel and hoped he had good news waiting for him at home. She had once hidden everything she owned to protect the honesty of love. She had learned, at considerable cost, that genuine love should never require a woman to make herself smaller to survive beside the people who claimed to choose her. She had deserved dignity even when they believed she had nothing. That had been true on the balcony at the Aldenmere before anyone knew her name. It remained true now. Outside her window, the harbor moved past in the morning light. Somewhere inside the property ahead, the kitchen crew was already at work. The first guests were already coming down for breakfast, and the building her father had quietly made possible was doing exactly what it had always been built to do.